Poštovani gledalci, dobrodošli u još jedno izdanje emisije Granice istoka. Ja sam Harun Karčić. U ovosedmičnom izdanju emisije donosimo dubinsku analizu krize u Siriji i kompleksne uloge koju globalni i regionalni akteri igraju u oblikovanju njene budućnosti. Kako se interesi svjetskih sila sudaraju sa lokalnim dinamikama? Šta ovaj sukob znači za stabilnost Bliskog istoka? Koliko je Turska značajan akter u rješavanju sirijskog konflikta? U prvom dijelu emisije analiziramo tursku političku strategiju u Siriji, odnose sa novim vlastima, ali i prema kurdskim militantima na sjeveru zemlje. Idemo sada slikom do Milana gdje se nalazi Francesco Salesio Schiavi, italijanski politički analitičar. Francesco, hello and welcome to the Al Jazeera Balkans channel, and thank you so much for taking time to speak to us. Now, we have seen over the last 1.5 years how Israel has been annihilating the Gaza Strip and killing quite a number of Palestinian civilians. And I was wondering now, since the coming to power of Donald Trump, what kind of a message has his administration been sending to the government of Benjamin Netanyahu? Are they essentially giving him the green light to continue doing what he has been doing over the past 18 or so months?
First of all, thank you for having me and answering your question. Basically, yeah. I think that under Trump's administration, the US-Israel relations have never been so strong, with Washington providing unconditional diplomatic and military backing, even despite it mounting, let's say, international condemnation. So we know that the latest Israeli escalation began with the renewed air strikes on Gaza, killing more than 400 people, including 1/3 of them were children. And this was followed by Israel's first ground operation in the Netanyahu corridor, effectively cutting Gaza in half. In this situation, the US was the only country in the UN Security Council to support Israel's renewed bombing, let's say, reinforcing Washington's direct complicity in the escalation, I think. We also know that reports confirm that Israel consulted with the White House before launching the strikes. So in this sense, yeah, answering your question, they effectively securing a green light from Washington. And of course, in the past, we have seen Netanyahu's publicity thank Trump for his unwavering support. We have seen that Netanyahu has been the first international leaders visiting Washington. So on the one hand, we cannot say that there is a different US position towards Israel as its main Washington ally in the region, but at the same time, for sure, what's the difference here is that Trump is more openly committed to whatever Netanyahu's do and his actions in the region. So
right.
Yeah.
Now, Francesco, when you look at the reactions of the Arab nations around, as a whole, and their responses to the war on Gaza, do you see a gap existing between the rhetoric of Arab leaders and their political actions?
Yeah, for sure. Let's say that all our Arab states have strongly condemned Israel's latest offensive with Jordan, Egypt, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, which is not Arab, but still a main regional actor there, denouncing the strikes and the violation as a violation of international laws. We have also seen an emergency Arab League meeting in Cairo calling on the US to, let's say, pressure Israel into halting its violation of the ceasefire agreement. However, again, despite this vocal criticism, we have seen that Arab states have taken few concrete actions beyond diplomacy, let's say. For example, Egypt has put forward billions of dollars in reconstruction plan for Gaza to counter Trump's proposed Gaza Riviera, the population scheme. But at the same time, most Arab governments avoid taking direct confrontation with Israel or the US. Also, economic factors are shaping the Arab response, let's say. We have seen that Gulf stock markets have suffered sharp declines due to the rising instability caused by the new wave of violence in the Gaza Strip. So yeah, basically, short answer, this is a familiar pattern with Arab diplomacy. We have seen strong rhetoric support for Palestine, but limited concrete action against Israel or its Western bakers at the end.
Right, exactly. Now, you know, when you look at the European Union, I mean, why does the EU seem to adopt a relatively passive or rather muted approach to human rights violations in Gaza, save for a number of countries such as Spain, which have been quite vocal in raising their voices in support of Palestine?
Well, even here, this is a thing that we already watched in the past. We have seen Israel leaders that continues to offer strong rhetorical condemnation, but at the same time, little meaningful action to hold Israel accountable, especially right now that Trump's firmly backing Israel. So European leaders are more reluctant to openly challenge the US. We have seen there are many factors in here that prevent the US to take a meaningful political or economic measures against Israel. We know that the European Parliament has held multiple voices on emergency debates on issues like Georgia, let's say, over the last weeks, but has never issued a formal resolution on Gaza. There is a strong inconsistency, let's say, undermining the EU credibility. And of course, this reinforces perception in the region of Western double standards, let's say. There are also European remains highly divided on Israel and Palestine. We have seen on the one hand, Spain, Ireland pushing for stronger measures against Israel, while major players like France, Germany, Italy that prefer to maintain, let's say, the status quo. We have economic interests, especially on defense and technology partnership with Israel. And all of these together limits Europe's willingness to, let's say, impose sanctions or put it simply, going beyond the rhetorical condemnation of Israel.
Now, Francesco, I mean, in your work, you've also touched upon Turkey's role in the wider Middle East. And I was wondering, how do you make sense of Ankara's balancing act, you know, its relations with the Palestinians, which are quite tight, its relations with Israel, it's been very supportive of the new government in Damascus. How is Ankara managing to balance out all these different foreign policies?
Let's say, on the one hand, Turkey has positioned itself as one of the harshest critics of Israel. We have seen President Erdogan intensifying diplomatic efforts to reinstate a ceasefire in Gaza, and at the same time condemning Israeli strikes and the renewal of, let's say, the new ground offensive provided by Israel. And it also offered for providing humanitarian aid, but again, I think that its influence over the conflict remains limited, at least for what relates to Gaza. We've seen that Turkey has imposed a trade ban on Israeli exports, but yet reports from the Israeli central bank indicate that this embargo had, let's say, minimal economic impact. Also, we have seen that recently Ankara has also called for blocking Israel from participating in future NATO military drills due to its veto power until a ceasefire is established. However, all these measures, let's say, are not changing Israel policy. We also seen that, let's say, Turkey has tried to curve a role for itself at the mediation table, leveraging its diplomatic relationship, improving the diplomatic relationship with Egypt and its long history of partnership with Qatar, who have established a direct mediation channel with Israel and Hamas. But and also we have seen the United States, that are the main international actor, working in the let's say the mediation process. But overall, I think that all these actors are not keen to see Ankara sitting at the mediation table, and at the same time, especially because I mentioned before, Turkey has a short influence in what's happening on the ground in Gaza, and has a very a small leverage vis-a-vis Israel, and also its international supporters.
Francesco, it was such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much once again for your time and for your insights.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for having me.
Rat protiv Palestinaca u Gazi rezultirao je napadima pobunjenika Husa iz Jemena na brodski saobraćaj u Crvenom moru. To je bio njihov način iskazivanja solidarnosti sa palestinskim narodom. Više od 17.000 brodova svake godine prođe Crvenim morem, što, procjenjuje se, čini 12% globalne trgovine, prevozeći hranu, sirovine, gorivo i gotove proizvode. Naš naredni gost je Giorgio Cella, vanjskopolitički analitičar iz Med-Or fondacije. On nam se uključuje iz Milana. Giorgio, hello and welcome to the Al Jazeera Balkans channel, and thank you so much for taking time to speak to us now. I've come across your work before. You have written a lot about the Russia's aggression towards Ukraine. And I wanted to start by asking you, how do you assess the evolution of this ongoing war in Ukraine, and what, in your opinion, are Russia's long-term strategic objectives in this war, and how has the coming to power of Donald Trump impacted Moscow's calculus?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Harun. Well, what we are witnessing now is a solid foreign policy change from the United States, at least towards Ukraine, and maybe towards the whole Central and Eastern Europe. Trump is looking forward to fulfill his electoral campaign promises in bringing lasting peace in Ukraine, or at least a truce that is sustainable, and he seems very determined to achieve it. What is the situation that is unfolding before our very eyes these days? The United States want to switch the conflict off, and although they want to lead the negotiation process, the negotiation dynamics, they want to be a leader in the diplomacy field, but they don't want anything to see with boots on the ground, American boots on the ground in Ukraine, even it seems in the future of Ukraine, in a possible post-war future. Trump spoke about the possibility of having American workers in Ukraine as a kind of a new way of security guarantees for Ukraine. We will see how that goes. And in this complex situation, Europe is kind of seems bewildered by this drastic and sudden change of policies toward Ukraine from its main ally, the United States, and it's been kind of caught off guard, it seems. And at this stage, we don't know, by the time we're speaking, if European forces will be allowed by the US and Russia, by the two main negotiating forces, to be present in the post-war Ukraine with their peacekeepers. This is what some European countries would like to see, would like to have. But by the time we are speaking, actually, nobody knows. It's still pretty uncertain, but it doesn't seem a future reality for now.
Now, you know, Russia has been very much involved in other conflicts around the world, primarily in Syria since 2015. I wanted to ask you, what role does Russia play in shaping the political future of this new post-Assad Syria, and what instruments is Moscow employing to sort of sustain its influence and its presence in Syria today?
Well, Russia in Syria has been, we could say, been caught off guard too by the lightning military offensive and the conquest of the whole territory of Syria of the new military force led by Ahmad al-Shara al-Jolani and his Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group. The fate of the Tartus base so far is still uncertain. In a further twist of realpolitik, the new leader of Syria, Ahmad al-Shara, which I think will be president of Syria for a while, held first top-level talk with Russian diplomacy in the past month, and they have been pondering a possible survival of the Tartus base in the hands of the Russians, as well as the Khmeimim air base. Al-Shara indeed, surprisingly, for some at least, emphasized the strong strategic ties between the two countries and Syria's openness to all parties in a way to serve the interest of the Syrian people. And because Ahmad al-Shara's main worrying now is to keep the country together and to make it possible to lead a united Syria. Right. Let's also recall that historically for Russia, having an access in the Mediterranean and in the Middle East has been kind of a vital geopolitical element since the time of Peter the Great. So it's a geostrategic priority for the Kremlin to get back in Syria and have a saying in Middle Eastern affairs. And we also have to consider in this the warming relations between the Trump administration and the Russian Federation. Maybe a future Russian presence in Syria will be more tolerated by the US, also in the Middle East. I mean, this is just speculation, of course, but perhaps that could be the case.
Now, we have seen how Turkey has been playing quite an active role and maintaining ties with both Ukraine and Russia over the last couple of years. Turkey is also very much active in its own immediate neighborhood. So in your opinion, as an analyst, how significant is Turkey as a geopolitical actor in the new Syria?
Well, Turkey has been fundamental in Syria since the inception of the civil war, and especially its ties with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or with President Ahmad al-Shara. I think Turkey is becoming a major geopolitical power in Syria as well. We have recently seen that the Kurds in northeast Syria became a key players too in shaping the country's future because of the recent agreement between Damascus and the Syrian Democratic Forces to consolidate the Kurdish element within the new Syria. However, the future of the Syrian state, by the time we're speaking, remains uncertain amid sectarian violence that we have seen against the Alawites, with radical Islamic factions that were somehow, I don't know, affiliated or, I mean, close to the government, and Israel's aspiration as well to encourage secessionist tendency among the Druze community in Syria South. So we also got to look at Israel's growing territorial appetite in the south of Syria, the Golan, and again now with their ties, their closer ties with the Druze community. And in this complex situation, Turkey's strategic interest seems to be colliding with the American and Israeli interest. Ankara, as its main objective, wants to maintain its presence in the north, in Afrin, in Aleppo, and there are talks about various military bases that are opening in the country. And Turkey also wants to be a major power in restructuring Syria's police and Syria's armed forces. So now Turkey faces two major challenges: Israel expansion in the south and the gradual growing political presence of a Kurdish factor. And the recent deal with al-Shara has been kind of surprising in that way for many analysts. And also, last but not least, Ankara wants to consolidate its presence with the actual government, of course, of Hayat al-Rasham, the former Hayat al-Rasham, and the new government led by Ahmad al-Shara.
Right. Now, in the same context, we have seen how over the last 1 or 2 years, Russia and Iran have had quite close-knit cooperation in numerous aspects in their, in trade, in commerce, in intelligence sharing, in the military domains. However, we've seen how Israel has essentially destroyed a major ally of Tehran, which is Hezbollah, by completely decimating its top echelons within the Hezbollah's leadership. Russia is also pretty much on its back foot when it comes to Ukraine. So how would you comment on the current geopolitical realities linking Iran and Russia amidst all these shifting geopolitical dynamics in the world?
Well, last January, Russia and Iran, they have signed a new comprehensive partnership.
Yes.
And it revealed the limit of this partnership. I think Iran remains an ally of Russia, or maybe rather Russia remains a major ally for Iran. But in this last agreement that they have signed, there are no signs of military partnership, no binding elements that could make us think about a progression in their global partnership. And we also got to remember that last week President Trump sent a letter to the supreme ruler of Iran, Ali Khamenei, warning about the nuclear program, that it has to stop leaving all uranium enrichment activities, even at low levels, won't be tolerated, and they got to do away with the nuclear program entirely. This is the message of the letter that President Trump sent to Ali Khamenei. And after the U.S. airstrike on Yemen, Trump also said that the U.S. will hold Tehran responsible for any attacks by Yemen's Houthis. So dismissing, by the way, Tehran's insistence that the Houthis do not operate under their influence. And again, one last event that is worth of notice in this chaotic atmosphere: Russia, China, and Iran met just last week in Beijing in order to discuss the situation concerning the nuclear program. And they came up with a final declaration, saying that the heavy sanction against Iran should be stopped by the United States, and that the nuclear activity is only civil. It doesn't constitute any warring in terms of military activities. And by now, it remains to be seen if the new alignment between Trump, this warming relation between Trump and the United States, between the United States and Russia will change Moscow's posture with regards to Iran, maybe in exchange to some concession in the settlement of the Ukraine truce deal. But again, this is purely speculation so far. And the last thing, taking a page out of your introduction, let's also recall the weakened position of Iran in the international arena and in the Middle East too, amid the heavily reduced strength of its Shia allies, whether it's in Lebanon, Hezbollah, as you mentioned, the Houthis as well, Hamas, and the loss of Syria after Bashar al-Assad's power removal.
Right, Giorgio, it was such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much once again for your time.
Thank you so much, Harun. Thanks to see you. See you next time. Thank you.
Bliski istok je više od geografskog prostora. To je poligon na kojem se testiraju granice moći, strategije utjecaja i ideološke podjele. Svaki akter, bilo lokalni ili globalni, igra ključnu ulogu u definisanju njegove budućnosti. Upravo zato razumijevanje strateške važnosti regije nije samo pitanje politike, već imperativ za shvatanje svijeta i promjena u geopolitici. Poštovani gledalci, bilo je to sve u ovom izdanju emisije Granice istoka. Ako ste bilo koji dio propustili, emisiju možete pogledati na našem web portalu balkans.aljazeera.net. Hvala na pažnji.